Hello, YouTubers. I best meet myself before we start. Hello, how are you doing? It's Dog Does Politics here with another video for you on a Tuesday evening in February. So I will try not to make this video go on for super long. I only sort of wanted to make debate a certain point that I saw a video of on Channel 4 recently the other day about and it was discussing the British obsession and I guess comparison between Brexit and World War II, Churchill, bringing up sort of that sort of imagery, through rose-tinted spectacles like rationing, Blitz spirit, fighting the Nazis, etc. And Channel 4 did a quite good video about this. So I thought it might be worth doing a video about it because I had some opinions on it myself anyway. So yes, here I am with a video to discuss that very subject. So yeah, what do I reckon? So a lot of these sort of tropes, these Second World War tropes, have been used by a lot of leavers, I've noticed, over the past couple of years to compare, our departure from the EU with our 1940s fight with Nazi Germany and Hitler. I just think like, what? Why are you trying? Why are people trying to compare the EU with Nazi Germany? And it has been done. It's been done by various politicians. Nigel Farage, for one, various UKIPers, people like Boris Johnson, who, absolutely know what they're talking about. And, they don't make any mistakes when they say this sort of stuff. They deliberately invoke that sort of imagery to make it like an emotional battle, like we're sort of as if battle lines have been drawn and we're like creating this big, I don't know, it just seems so silly. It's like I feel like it's unnecessary nostalgia, and a lot of people aren't even of the age to remember when that happened. I mean, it's only people like past their 70s into their 80s and over that will remember what World War II was like. And they'd have probably only been like children or teenagers during that period. So, a lot of people who experienced that period in history, and now a lot of them are dead. So, I just think it's completely unnecessary to evoke that sort of imagery and use that rhetoric, because all it does is just create more conflict and more tension, and just it's just needless. It's needless. You're just, and it's I notice it's more prevalent. That is more, that way of evoking the war is more prevalent and more you know elderly folk are sort of more impressionable to that sort of language, obviously. But I don't see the need for it. I don't see the need for it. So I'll show you a little bit of a video that I saw on Channel 4, and there's a lady who absolutely nails my opinion about this, the whole World War II sort of stuff. So I will share it with you now. If I share my screen. Eee. Okay. And it's completely evocative of like exactly how I feel. So here we are, ration book, 1940s style.
It's so naive, isn't it? They have no idea. They have absolutely no idea. I feel like weeping because it's so utterly stupid. Here I am again, my mother. Meet Ruth Baden. Now 86, she was a wartime child, and someone for whom rationing was a reality. It's not just the bombing and the shortages, the women that were widowed and the children that were orphaned, the families that were just obliterated. The constant nightmare of wondering whether the people you love are still there.
I'm just checking to see whether you can actually hear it because I'm aware that I've muted um myself. Oh, hello people in the chat. Hang on. I'll unmute this. Hang on. I'm aware that I've muted. Oh dear, this isn't going well, is it? Can you hear that? Did you hear it before?
Absolutely no idea. I feel like weeping because it's so utterly stupid. Here I am again, my mother. Meet Ruth Baden. Now 86, she was a wartime child, and someone for whom rationing was a reality. It's not just the bombing and the shortages, the women that were widowed and the children that were orphaned, the families that were just obliterated. The constant nightmare of wondering whether the people you love are still there. How do you feel about politicians who evoke a war that they've never lived through? I'm really quite angry at the stupidity and the nonsense that's being talked. What are you angry at? You know, that rather sort of that false pride. We're just a small island off the mainland of Europe. I mean, I think we have a great deal to offer, but let's not get above ourselves.
Anyway, I'll mute myself again. So that's exactly how I sort of feel in regard to the evoking of Second World War, like Blitz spirit sort of stuff, because she's absolutely right. It's just ridiculous, and it's like sort of evoking this sort of like false pride is what she said, and also the idea that Britain stood alone, um, opposing Nazi Germany and Italy, and for a period Russia. Look at these great powers that we're standing alone against. We alone can stop the Nazis and fascism. Well, I've got news for you. We may geographically be alone as a country, as a United Kingdom, because we are an island that is physically separated by a channel of water from the rest of continental Europe. However, during that time, we owned an entire empire stretching across the whole world. We owned India, Australia. We had, citizens in New Zealand, in Africa. Um, parts of America were ours. Commonwealth countries who, were our citizens. Jamaica, Tobago, those countries belong to us. So therefore, we were not technically alone because we had an armada of soldiers at our disposal, able and willing to, well, maybe not necessarily willing to fight for us, but they did so anyway because, it was, fighting for technically their country. Um, so we were not alone. We had an entire Commonwealth army that we could make use of. So the idea that we stood alone against the Nazis and the power of fascism, we beat them all. No, we did not. We are a tiny little country. Yes, we had a very good elite fighting force. The RAF, for example, Battle of Britain, etc. But a lot of the soldiers in our armies were made up of, Indians, Australians, New Zealanders, Polish people, um, Egyptians, just so many people from so many different backgrounds. And also we had allies as well, Canadians, Americans, French, fighting for us on our side. So the very idea that we are standing alone against the might of Hitler. I mean, yeah, like I said, we are geographically, separated from the rest of Europe, but as a fighting force, we are not alone. We're a very powerful um empire of nations. So that is in itself is misleading and wrong to say the least. Um and to the idea of rationing as well, as if that's like a great thing to go back to. Like people wouldn't mind if there were food shortages as a result of Brexit. They wouldn't be that bothered if rationing was reintroduced. As if do you know how ridiculous that sounds? Like it's just I just can't believe some people's delusion and like their levels of nostalgia and like rose tinted delusion is what I'll call it. Because rationing in the 1940s, it was not a choice, it was a necessity. Um People didn't do it because they wanted to do it, thought it was a good idea. Oh, let's have a bash at rationing and see if we can manage. Absolutely not. It was because uh Nazis were blockading the channel, preventing us from importing our own food, forcing us to grow vegetables at home. That was why we had to ration. It was a literal necessity that we literally had to do, otherwise, we would very likely starve as a country. So, having the option of rationing, shall we have a ration? Shall we start rationing? I think that would be a great idea. Go back to the good old days of, stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on. Fuck off, spare me your nostalgia if you were not there to experience it yourself. Jesus wept. Oh my god. I think I think a lot of these people and like leavers, I'm sorry, I always have to keep coming back to leavers because the only times I've ever seen, these vox pops of leavers in the street being interviewed in the street, whether it's on BBC, whether it's on LBC, whether it's on Channel 4, all of the news channels, all I ever hear them say, and this is from their own mouths, so it's not as if it's like deliberately misleading, from their own mouths, have talked about how wonderful it would be to go back to rationing, and it would be great to go without food for a bit. I heard someone on Channel 4 actually say that, or words to that effect. I was like, it absolutely wouldn't. Can you imagine if people who have to go to food banks currently people who have no choice but to go to food banks in order to feed themselves and their family, can you imagine if we had food shortages that meant that food was scarce and people literally starved? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Hey, hey, come on, bring it on. Keep calm and carry on. We can manage. Let's spirit. Oh my god, Jesus Christ, I can't. Right, my leg's going dead. Let's have a look at some of these comments. Hello, people in the chat. Cam's here. Hi, Cam. Um, and also hello to the trolls in the chat as well. Cam says Brexit is not about remembering World War II or re-experiencing that conflict. Print the legend, etc. Oh, sorry, my volume was too low. Sorry. I might play it again if there's time. Caroline Flint, I took John Mann's WTO, now I want a Brexit. We refused to arm the majority of the empire. We stood alone in 1940. We want our country back. To be fair, with rationing, the British population was the healthiest then it ever was during the 40s and 50s. We eliminated obesity, not through choice. Yeah. Well, I mean, you raise a good point about like preventing and not having obesity, Cam. So that's good. I mean, like at least people were healthy, but rationing is not a choice. It shouldn't have to be a choice. Um, so the people that are sort of saying stuff like wouldn't mind having rationing back, or like it would teach us to manage. Well, I guess in a way it would teach us to manage, how we as a nation, consume food. But that would be in like extreme cases, and I don't think that we're ready for that, and I don't think that it's necessary either. It's just you're creating a problem when there shouldn't be one, technically. So yeah, that's what I think about that. Um so yeah, what I was gonna say was these sort of these people who bang on about the war and Churchill and oh, wasn't he an amazing person? Led us through Dunkirk and Blitz and all this. I mean, it is extremely nostalgic. I give you that. And yes, it was V for victory and weren't we wonderful? But it was a team effort. It was not just us by ourselves. It may have started out that way, but it didn't end that. It certainly did not end that way. It was a world war, so therefore all countries, no matter what side you're on, were involved in some way. Um, so yes, we did rely heavily on empire in order to win the war. I mean, we did not. If we stood alone and nobody else, supported us, we would most certainly have lost. Can you imagine if Russia were not involved and, Stalingrad? Imagine how that might have turned out. So, um, oh, excuse me. Oh. Um, so I think to an extent, I think that some of these people who hark back to Brexit, sorry, the war, as I said, a lot of them were probably children at the time or teenagers. And I'm guessing that sort of mindset, when you're a child, you have very little or none at all, like no responsibility at all. You bear no burden whatsoever. You have your parents to hold your hand and help you through life. And you've got, good old Chamberlain and Churchill on the radio leading the country, and, all outside playing with your friends, and you don't really notice, the bad things that are happening because it's probably hidden from you by the adults. Um, so I mean, everyone looks back on their childhood with, with sort of a degree of nostalgia and happiness, don't they? Because they're meant to be the best time of your life, best years of your life. Um, because as I said, you have absolutely no responsibility. You have no cares. You don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about debt or jobs. You don't have to worry about anything except school. Um, and I expect during the war, if you lived in a city, you were evacuated and didn't have to go to school or were sent to a school in the countryside. Um, so I think people paint a picture of the war as quite romanticized because I think it, to an extent, it covers up the traumas of what actually happened. Um, Try asking the people that didn't survive being bombed by Nazi warplanes or lost family members um, in cities like Bristol, Liverpool, Leeds, Coventry, Birmingham, London. So yeah, it was not a pleasant time. It was not, a time to be happy. It was time to sort of it was a time to sort of do the best that you possibly could in the circumstances. Sure there was a lot of death and suffering. Um, I can't speak for anyone that experienced that because I was not alive then, as were not a lot of other people who weren't alive and seem to be spouting this. I just think that it's completely unnecessary. Um, so yeah, um, I'm just rambling. There's no real direction to what I'm saying, so I'm just spouting off my opinions really. Um, Jimbo James says food and expectations were different. Yes, I agree. Um, I just don't think the rhetoric that is used around World War II and comparing the EU to Nazis is helpful or needed. I mean, the idea of making the comparison um, of the EU and making them out to be the Nazis. Are you real? Are you actually real? Do you know what Nazi you like? You take a step back and like think about what you're saying. Nazis burnt people, gassed people, and just committed the most horrendous atrocities known to Earth, known to our species. And you really want to sit there and compare the EU to literal Nazis? Just whoa, just whoa. Okay, like I just think it's gone way too far. This language of it's language of division. It really is. It's encouraging people to look back emotionally. And when you're looking back at something emotionally, you're not being straightforward. You're not being logical. You're not looking at things objectively as you should be. You're looking at things through rose-tinted spectacles, basically. And think, oh, what a lovely time that was. It was not lovely. It was not a lovely time. It was a war. And during war, things are not lovely. Do you think it was lovely for Jews? Ask yourself, was it lovely for Jews? Right. What would be a good comparison? The Saujets? You have to you have to clarify what that means above all this. Um so yeah, I might just show you some more of this video and I'll turn the volume up. Um yeah, please let me know if you can hear it okay. So yeah. Right. Oop. Um Do 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 do.
It's so naive, isn't it? They have no idea. They have absolutely no idea. I feel like weeping because it's so utterly stupid. Here I am again, my mother. Meet Ruth Baden. Now 86, she was a wartime child, and someone for whom rationing was a reality. It's not just the bombing and the shortages, the women that were widowed and the children that were orphaned, the families that were just obliterated. The constant nightmare of wondering whether the people you love are still there. How do you feel about politicians who evoke a war that they've never lived through? I'm really quite angry at the stupidity and the nonsense that's being talked. What are you angry at? That rather sort of that false pride. We're just a small island off the mainland of Europe. I mean, I think we have a great deal to offer, but let's not get above ourselves. Ruth's wartime experiences lead her to believe we should remain in the EU, but others who saw the war feel very differently. Just 12 miles away, we've come to an airfield in Berkshire to meet a veteran pilot.
This thing's called a Tiger Bot. It was the basic trainer, and it's the one you make the most mistakes on. And
94-year-old Brian Neely is a passionate Brexiter.
We don't want to be told by politicians who had nothing to do with the war. We'd probably be speaking German now if it weren't for us. Why the hell should they come and tell us what to do?
Brian was just a teenager when he signed up as a fighter pilot. He doesn't agree with politicians using wartime rhetoric, but does believe Britain needs more blitz spirit.
I can remember Dunkirk and Churchill coming out with a major speech, and I can remember people actually coming out of their houses almost cheering the next day. And we had nothing, absolutely nothing. I'd say the same with Brexit. We've stood up alone before, and what makes us think that we can't stand up alone again?
Typifying the resolution displayed throughout the kingdom, the capital stands defiant.
Britain standing alone. It's a memory imprinted in our minds and seems to dominate the political narrative. But are we in danger of misremembering? Time to take a view from the other side. We've come to Berlin, a city filled with monuments of national shame, crying out to those who walk these streets. After the war, they even created a word for it, Vergangenheitsbewältigung, the process of coming to terms with the past. So is there something to be learnt from the way Germany remembers?
The mother and her dead son is under the open sky. The civilian is not protected if the democratic structures of the state collapse. And all democratic structures are fragile.
Historian and former British Museum director Neil McGregor is now advising the Humboldt Forum in Germany. He believes Britain's view of its own history is dangerous.
The way the British deal with their own history is essentially one of self-affirmation. We use our past to tell ourselves that we've on the whole been the good guys, and when we come to difficult bits, we just speed up. The greatest contrast is that the Germans live constantly with the failures of their own history. We're standing here in the middle of Berlin. Just behind us is where the Nazis burnt the books in 1932. And the Germans use that history to shape current politics.
Isn't it inevitable that British and German views on how we think about the past are going to be different because we have different histories? As far as Britain is concerned, we were on the right side.
Of course, that's true. What you do with that central fact is what's interesting. The Germans took the fact of being on the wrong side to think hard about what that means, what went wrong, and what can always go wrong in a democratic society. What is not said enough, I think, is that Britain alone in 1940 was Britain with the whole of a huge empire. From the German point of view, standing Germany here, above all in Berlin, in East Berlin, the Second World War was, of course, determined essentially by the Russians and by the Americans. There is something very concerning about Britain's reluctance to abandon 1940. The desire to go on living in the world of the evil Nazis and the good British. And I think that has definitely distorted the political debate.
So how is Britain's political debate, with plenty mentions of the war, received in Germany? Here's the view from one German who's a close observer of British politics.
These Brexit negotiations are very unpleasant at the moment, but at the end of the day, it's people going to Brussels, having tea and having very unpleasant discussions in peacetime. It is inappropriate and it's distasteful in my opinion, and frankly it needs to stop.
There were many Brits who say, we are proud of our role in World War II. We stood up against Nazism. What's wrong with that?
You have every right to be proud. I don't want to take that away, and let me just say, as a German, I continue to be grateful for the part who played in liberating us from the Nazis. When you compare the EU to Nazi Germany, you're not just defending Germans. Think about the countries who greatly suffered under German occupation. I mean, the Netherlands, for example, or France, or Poland. To tell these people who've been victims of Nazi Germany that they are like the Nazis is beyond offensive.
Sorry, I got a bit confused because everyone keeps mentioning the war. So
44 years on, and somehow this sketch feels ever relevant.
will you stop talking about the war? Me? You started it? We did not start it. Yes, you did. You invaded Poland.
Perhaps it's time the Basil Fawltys of today got a proper history lesson.
So, good old Fawlty Towers there. So I'll go back. So, Bazza says, did anyone see Jess Phillips' question to the PM today? She was nearly crying. I have not seen that yet today, Bazza, so I'll make sure I'll go back and look at it at some point later. Oh, I'm sorry that the volume was still too low. I think I did push up to 100, so I apologize if you still couldn't hear it properly. So yeah, I guess I'm sort of coming to the end of my rant now, about British nostalgia to do with the war. I mean, we've been having this argument out for a good few years, and we're trying to, as a country, I guess, come to terms with, or ask, what is our identity now? Like, what do we want to be as a nation? Who do we want to become? What is our attitude towards the world or the rest of the world? I think another good thing to mention is that after the Second World War, I mean, obviously you had the Berlin Wall and the divide of Germany, East and West, and the beginnings of the Cold War throughout the latter half of the 40s and into the 50s, and the creation of the Iron Curtain and communism in Russia, the Red Scare, etc., which was not a very good period in history, which I think we can all learn from, in that creating division does not equal success. It does not equal good relationships. It doesn't equal fairness, equality, things like that. So I definitely think that we can learn from these experiences. And after we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, Germany became, gradually became, I would argue, a much more liberal state, a much more open state, and a country that really recognized its wrongdoings in the past and wanted to open up and accept other people, other cultures, open borders, and things like that. And we didn't turn our backs on Germany, neither did America. America was like responsible for one of the best things that ever came out of, I'd argue, America after the war, is that in that the Marshall Plan, rebuilding countries that used to be enemies into, into, in terms of infrastructure, completely, transforming their economies and turning them into allies as opposed to keeping them as enemies. That is probably one of the greatest policies that America has ever thought of. And money was given to all of these countries across Europe to rebuild and just transform the way they lived. One of the best things that ever came out of America. Um, that and the New Deal. So I just don't think encouraging this idea of this evocation of um, Nazis, Hitler, the war, Churchill, us versus them. We have to keep fighting. It's just really not helpful. I don't believe that it's helpful. Um, and I think we really ought to be thinking about how do we deal with this together as opposed to drawing the battle lines and creating more division and more tension. Um, see, that's what I think. Um, so yeah, I think that's my rant pretty much over. I just thought I'd do this quickly as on a Tuesday, just because I felt like it. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content. I will try and upload some more stuff for you guys in the near future. Don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up if you like it, share it with other people as well, and also ring the bell if you want notifications of when I upload. So yeah, I will probably see you in one of Swiss's streams very soon. I will do more Brexit videos, of course, in the weeks to come. Got some very important votes coming up in the Commons. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.